Good morning, children. Earlier we had done application of plasmolysis in our everyday life and certain questions related to endosmosis. Here, few definitions are given which you will learn. Next, we come over to uses of turgidity to plants. Turgidity provides rigidity to the soft tissue such as leaves. When there is not enough water in the leaf, it wilts. It is that the petiole and the lamina, they become loose and the leaf droops down. And wilting of leaves is usually noticed when the plant is exposed to the hot afternoon sun. At that time, the amount of water lost by transpiration is more than the water absorbed by the roots, and the leaf cells become flaccid and the leaves wilt. And in the evening, when the transpiration is reduced, the quantity of water absorbed exceeds the loss of water through transpiration, and the turgidity of the leaf cells is again restored and the leaves again stand out. So this is one use of turgidity. Next is turgid pressure helps to push through the hard ground. When the seeds germinate, the seedlings, they have very soft tissue, but they can push their way out through the hard ground due to turgid pressure. Sometimes the roots of certain trees have been seen to crack the walls or concrete floor of the adjoining building. This again is due to turgid pressure. Then turgor in root cells build up root pressure. If you cut a well-watered potted plant, say balsam, a few centimeters above the soil and immediately fix a glass tubing to it by means of a rubber connection. So rubber connection is there, and then a glass tubing and a manometer which has mercury. You will see that the rising water can raise the mercury filled up in the connected manometer, and this upward flow of water is due to the heavy pressure from the roots, which is called root pressure. What is the definition of root pressure? It is the pressure developed in the roots due to continued inward movement of water. The water is continuously moving inward by cell-to-cell osmosis, which helps in the ascent of sap upward through the stem. And due to root pressure, the cell sap can rise in the tube or in the stem in a natural condition up to a certain height only. Then loss of the cell sap through the cut end of the stem is called bleeding. Here, if we wouldn't have connected this rubber tubing, the cell sap would have oozed out from the cut end of the stem, and this is called bleeding. And children, if you are asked give difference between bleeding and guttation, please don't write bleeding in humans, that if anyone gets a cut or is injured, blood comes out of the body, that is called bleeding. No, we are talking about bleeding in plants. Bleeding in humans is not in our syllabus. Then turgor in the opening and closing of stomata. You all know that the stomata have two guard cells, and these guard cells have their inner wall which is thicker, which is facing the stoma, and a thin wall on the opposite side. And these guard cells, they have chloroplast in them, and when sunlight falls during daytime on these, the chloroplast gets activated, photosynthesis occurs, glucose is made, and the concentration of glucose in the guard cells increases, or you can say that the solution in the guard cells becomes concentrated, and thus the water from the adjoining cells moves into the guard cells, makes the guard cells turgid, and this results in the bulging out of the arched wall outwards, and the aperture between the two guard cells widens and the stomata opens. And when there is shortage of water or at night, the guard cells become flaccid and their inner wall, which is rigid, becomes straight and thus closes the stomata. Then turgor movement. The rapid drooping of the leaves of sensitive plant. You all must have heard of the plant touch me not, and its scientific name is Mimosa pudica. When you just touch its leaflets, it droops. And it droops within 2 or 3 seconds. The entire leaves droops. And if the touch is somewhat strongly done, then the wave of folding and drooping spreads from the stimulated leaf to the neighboring leaves. And slowly the leaves recover and again stand erect. This plant is actually sensitive to touch. When you touch the leaf, the cell sap moves away from that part, from the petiole and all, and the cells lose turgidity, and thus the leaflets droop. So he says that in this plant, the stimulus of touch leads to the loss of turgor at the base of the leaflet and at the base of the petiole called pulvinus, and somewhat similar turgor movement are found in insectivorous plants. Insectivorous plants, they are also sensitive to touch. When insects come and sit on the leaves of those plants, the leaves fold or close to trap the insects. And the bending movement of certain flowers towards the sun and the sleep movement of leaves of certain plants at night are also due to turgor movement. Next is imbibition and turgor together generate much force. This imbibition is passive absorption of water by substances such as cellulose and starch. Turgor is the pressure set up inside the plant cells due to the hydrostatic pressure on the cell wall on account of incoming water as a result of endosmosis. And the seeds and the grains, they swell up when soaked in water due to both imbibition and endosmosis. And the force generated by water thus absorbed is strong enough to make the seed coat rupture. And as a result of excess of water, a force is generated and which results in the rupturing of the seed coat. And some other examples are when soaked seeds, they are kept in a fully filled closed container, burst it open with great pressure. Even the basement godowns, which are fully stocked with the bags containing food grains, have got their walls cracked. Their walls get cracked when by chance the water enters into the godowns. Then these seeds, they absorb water by imbibition and endosmosis occurs. As a result, the turgor in the seeds exceeds, which results in the cracking of the walls of the godown. So this much for today.